Good to see everybody today. Just a reminder of what we're doing today. It is incorporating outside sources into your own writing. Our goal is to reinforce knowledge, paragraph structure, opportunities to practice incorporating sources into paragraph. Today, the example that I'm going to be showing has 3 sources. So we'll be putting them all together into one paragraph. And we will apply this model to your own writing, hopefully. So again, please prepare your questions, prepare your sources, get ready to work on your own writing. So what was covered in the previous workshop? First of all, repetition is the mother of learning, but second, some of the participants today may not have been here a week ago. So what did we start with? We started with just marking an outside source in your own writing. So I try to emphasize several times that the attributive tag, which is basically just reporting verbs or another way to show that you're starting a quote, paraphrase, or a summary, and the in-text citation, in APA, it's the last name of the author, so the source that you're citing, and the year and the page number. And these are the markers, the borders of the text that is not yours, the idea that comes from somewhere else, right? From an article or a book that you read and you would like to refer to in your own writing. So what did it look like practically? So the example that I used was, as clearly demonstrated by Chan et al., COVID-19 epidemic had a strong negative effect on the US economy, year and page number. Again, the main reason to have this phrase, sometimes sentence, before your summary and the in-text citation, in this case, it's just the year and page number. After that citation, after that quote, paraphrase, or summary, is to demonstrate clearly that this fact, this idea, or this number came from an article or book that you read. They shouldn't be on different lines like in the previous slide. They should look all connected, of course. So our task 1 in the handout looked like this: as clearly demonstrated by Chan et al., COVID-19 epidemic had a strong negative effect on the US economy, 2020, page 7. Are there any questions about that? No. Okay, so then there was another task. It was bigger. We didn't only introduce that quote, paraphrase, or summary and then ended with citation. We also produced a topic sentence for the paragraph where that source would be used. So that's what it looked like when we finished, and that was just my example. And I want to emphasize that people's interpretation of the same source may be different. So variety is not bad. Variety is welcome. Variety is good. So if you have a different interpretation, it's wonderful. It's welcome. And we are welcome. We're going to discuss all of your ideas. So just to check how well we remember everything from the previous workshop, I'm going to ask you to identify 3 elements in this paragraph. It's not a very well rounded up paragraph, but there are 3 main elements here. We have a topic sentence, we have the summary, and then we have the author's interpretation. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone 1 minute, and please put in the chat where the topic sentence is. You can just copy and paste it. So we would say that the topic sentence, of course, introduced everything, right? The COVID-19 pandemic hurt the Black population of the United States. The summary of the outside source, right? So the first sentence was written by, let's say, me. Okay, I'm the author of this paragraph, right? So my topic sentence is mine. It's not somebody else's, right? The summary in this case introduces the idea or fact or some kind of statistic or something that came from outside of me, outside of my research. And in this case, it's marked by McCoy explains, right? So the attributive tag is McCoy, for example, explains. And then the and is marked by the in-text citation, the year and the page number, okay? And after that, we have, again, the interpretation of the person who writes this article for publication, right? The person who writes this paragraph. I would call this person the author of this particular paragraph. They themselves in a predicament, either unemployment and poverty, or the work that was killing them, because the source that we were reading at the time showed us this kind of contradiction, right? If you continue working, you may catch the virus, and your work did not provide health insurance, and so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So then from this, we went another step further. We built a more well-developed paragraph. And so that's what our paragraph looked like. Then we had a more extended paragraph. And in that paragraph, we also used an outside source. It was a different source. We skimmed a piece of a paper, and we found in that outside source, right, in that article that we read, that mortality rates were higher for certain populations than for other populations. Okay, so that was task 3 in the handout. Now, let's look through this paragraph, okay? Some sectors of the US population suffered from the coronavirus pandemic more than others. Who can label this sentence for me? Can you please unmute yourselves and tell me what this is? Is it still the author's text, or is it already the source? So if we compare, right, this is the full paragraph. This is the first sentence in it. Can we label it? What is that? You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just say it. Topic sentence, thank you. Any other opinions?
Start point, maybe.
There we go. It's starting point, it's a topic sentence. Okay, so if we go on, there is a little bit of development, right? Some sectors of the US population suffered from the coronavirus pandemic more than others. Its effect on minority groups appears disproportionate. What is happening in the second sentence in this paragraph? Author's opinion. Thank you, that's good.
I would call it
Author's interpretation. Very good. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Can you say it again, please?
I think it is a kind of author statement which they are later going to support by the literature.
Perfect. Very good. Very good. I think in the handout, I wrote something like development or something, but you're right. It is the author's interpretation or the statement that the author wants to make, which will be then supported. Excellent. Okay.
Maybe is it problem?
So, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, so it's a statement of the problem. Thank you. Very good. All right. So the continuation was as, as Johnson, Baku et al. Demonstrate, mortality rates for Black Americans are more than twice as high as those for the white non-Hispanic population, and the hospitalization rates for Latinos are over 400 times higher than for whites. Parentheses, 2020, page 1. Okay, can we label this sentence? What is that? Summary, very nice, thank you. Any other opinions? And you see, because it starts with as authors demonstrate, and it finishes with the parentheses with year and page, we have very clear borders. That was my interpretation. Now there is this fact from somebody else, and this is the end of that summary. Now there will be again my interpretation. If anyone remembers the previous workshop, I said that it is not necessary to write such phrases as I believe in my opinion, not because there's anything wrong with them, but because everything you write is expected and supposed to be what you believe and your opinion. And whenever you bring something else, you have to mark it. You have to show the borders. Okay, so if we move on, we have, well, these statistics are alarming since they indicate racial disparities in access to healthcare. Despite a long history for the fight for equality, U.S. minorities remain disadvantaged in several areas, healthcare being one of them. Can we label these two sentences? Can we find a composition type of description? What is going on here? Author's
This is a
interpretation,
summary.
very good. Summary, is that the summary of the outside source or the summary of your opinion?
No, the other opinion.
Somebody else's opinion. Okay. All right. He, she shows what this data is meant. Very good. What's meant in that outside source? Good.
Statistic information.
It's information, very good. We have kind of a disagreement here. So we have two options. Is it the opinion of the writer who is writing this paragraph, or is it from the outside source?
I
Is
think
it
that
mine
is,
or is it not mine?
I think that is author's interpretation of the data, I think.
Yes, I agree. I agree. You see, as Johnson, I keep covering this name, as Johnson Agbakwu demonstrate, shows where the outside source starts, parentheses, 2020, page 1, shows where it's where it ends. Everything else, this is mine, right? So I read their article, I processed it, and that's what I got out of it. That's what I think. Okay, all right. So after that, I'm promising I will demonstrate in the next part of the paper that something, something, something. Is there a label for that sentence? What would we call the sentence if we're disassembling this paragraph?
I think it's conclusion.
Perfect. Concluding sentence. Yeah, concluding sentences sometimes summarize my opinion in that paragraph, or summarize the things that I stated in that paragraph. Sometimes they lead to the next sections of the paper. Sometimes they lead to the next paragraph. Okay. In this example, I used the concluding sentence that leads to the next section of the paper, as I will demonstrate in the next section of the paper. American healthcare policies and practices may be at fault here. And so if we look at the whole thing, okay, if we get rid of all of the different colors and everything, what do we have in the end? In the end, we have a well-developed paragraph. It's a paragraph that combines the writer's interpretation with the source. It draws information from the source and shows the author's interpretation. So it shows your intelligent process, how you work with the source. Okay, so when people say sources are well integrated, that's what they mean. So as if you look in the handout for tasks 2 and 3, every time I write topic sentence in parentheses, I add or 2 or 3 or 4. It's not that there has to be just one sentence here or 2 sentences there or 3 sentences in another section. There's, of course, interpretation, and of course there should be variety, and it will depend on what you're working with, what you want to say, and how much you have to say. So please remember that this is not, you don't have to follow the exact pattern. The whole exercise here is to show how you take a fact from someone else, right? From somebody else's article or book, and then you work with it and wrap it in your own writing, right? You interpret it, and then you integrate it into the expression of your own ideas, Okay, all right. So I believe there were some questions about ways to express your opinion in a formal type of writing, in academic writing. So we have added some materials on academic voice, how to express your academic voice. And again, you can use the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and just volunteer the answer to my question. I'm going to read an example here and say that academic writers often use suitable reporting verbs to express their personal opinions toward the source that they're reporting, quoting, or paraphrasing. Now, which of the 3 options in the sentence below signals that the writer is simply reporting, agreeing, or disagreeing with what this outside source is saying? So we have 3 options. We have Smith says that grammar can be acquired in context. Smith claims that grammar can be acquired in context, or Smith suggests. So where is just straight report? Where is agreement? Where is disagreement? Says is straight reporting. Very good. I agree. It's neutral. We're just saying, I've read it in the article by Smith that was published in 2010. Okay. Now, where's agreement? Where's disagreement?
Suggests disagreement and claims disagreement.
I agree. The word claim is every time we say somebody claims, we're kind of holding our nose, don't you think? Right? Because this verb claim, it has a very strong doubt built into its semantic, right? We just says, suggests, claims. Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you. So this is how we can express our opinion. Again, the phrases I believe in my opinion seem not very well accepted in academic writing. But can we have an opinion? Of course we can. Do we have lots of opinions? Yes, we do, right? So how do we show it in a way that's accepted in professional, formal academic writing? This is how we show it. So when we say that somebody claimed, we're kind of making this face, right? Oh, they claimed it. Okay, all right, so some more. We have 3 examples, and they demonstrate that the writer can report findings from a source in the neutral terms or in terms of agreement or disagreement. Which statement indicates that the author of this sentence agrees with Smith? Assume it is probably the weakest. Do you agree? When you say, well, they assume something or another, it's almost guess, right? Assume is almost a synonym of guess. But argue is a little stronger, but not very strong, right? We can argue so that something is correct, but I think the writer is not completely persuaded, right? Demonstrates is the strongest one that shows that, yeah, I read it, I thought about it, I think I agree with them. I think they demonstrated it to me. I think I'm convinced. So I believe demonstrates in this case shows agreement, right? Possibly it is a degree of agreement. Yes, of course. Whenever we talk about information or opinions, we're talking about a scale. It's not yes or no. It's not black or white. Usually it's maybe to yes, to okay, possibly to complete no, right? So there is always a scale. All right, so the same kind of question, last one. If we have Jones that suggested something, showed something, and stated, which one shows that we agree that there was a strong argument? I agree. You know, when somebody states something, well, they may be right, may be wrong. That's just what they say, basically. Suggest is even weaker, but showed, yeah, I believe that their argument was actually quite persuaded because it was supported with evidence. Yeah. Well, we don't know. Since we didn't read that article by Jones from 2003, we have to rely on the author's opinion. And we assume that the author gave that article full consideration and it's an expert opinion, right? But, okay, all right. So there's always a possibility of interpretation and it's normal, it's okay. All right. So let's play with reporting verbs a little more. I want to warn you right away that just like it came up in our discussion right here, there is possibility for interpretation. It all will depend on the context. But let's practice. In your handout, there should be a section where there are columns of verbs and there's dashes before them. I'd like you to go through this list of verbs. Don't take too long. Let's make it something like 3 minutes or so. And please put plus for positive, minus for negative, or X for a neutral, or a cross for a neutral type of verb. And then we'll go through them together. Okay, so it should look something like that. There should be a list of verbs and there are little places before them for this plus, minus, or X. And it's also possible that some of them can be positive in one context and neutral in another context, or neutral in some situation and negative in another situation. Don't be alarmed by that. It's all right. So if you can't quite decide, you can either leave it blank or you can put slash and put positive, X neutral, and minus negative. So I'm going to show you how I thought these verbs can be labeled. I think advocate is positive. Agree also is kind of positive, though I'm going to take my change my opinion on this one. I probably would mark it as neutral. We just have this tendency to see agreement as positive, but if you agree with a wrong opinion, right, that's not a good thing. Allege, though, is I think a negative verb. Okay, please have a look at the list and tell me if any of these markings seem off to you? Is there any disagreement? See, a lot is going to depend on the context, right? When somebody criticizes something and they're right, it's good. But if you criticize somebody who is wrong, or is the other way, no. If you criticize somebody who is wrong, that's great. If you criticize someone who's right, that's not good, right? I hope you use the variety of the verbs and remember that you definitely should have an opinion, right? Okay. All right, let's move on, unless there are more comments about this. So the adjectives of importance and infinitive is another great way to express your opinion about something without using the phrases in I believe and in my opinion. So the formula is, it is adjective to infinitive of the verb. For example, it is important to realize the difference between cultures, for example. It is reasonable to assume that a poor diet is likely to something or another, right? Do you use those structures? They're lovely. They're lovely. They're wonderful. So that is a great way to express your opinion in a way that's accepted as a formal way, right? Something that's done in academic writing. So here's a whole table for you. You can mix and match, all right? So we start with it is adjective, to in the middle, and then the verb. I would like some volunteers to shoot those phrases at me and to give me something critical of the source that you are going to evaluate. So give me some negative evaluations. How about it is unreasonable to argue that, and then you continue, right? Pretty negative also. Okay, let's praise people. Let's say something was wonderful, but we will use the it is adjective to verb formula. Can you give me some positive statements? Yes, so it is important to underline it, certain points there. Okay, very good. And let's put emphasis. In this way, this phrase you will probably use for your own writing and saying, what I'm doing is really good. It's the correct way to do it. Can you put together a phrase? It is, for example, it is necessary to explore something or another. How about it's necessary to clarify? And then you continue, right? So you drew this extra light onto a particular part of your article. Or it is vital to highlight, and then you continue. So you draw extra attention to that section of your paper. Okay, if that is clear, let's move on to our next step. Okay, if before I had pictures of sandwiches because your summary, paraphrase, or quote is between your statements, right? The topic sentence and evaluation or development is yours. Then there is quote, paraphrase, or summary that comes from someone else. And then you have to finish again with your own text. Some kind of discussion, some kind of development of this main idea, and then concluding sentence in that paragraph. So we kind of sandwich other people's text between our own text, okay, when we write a paragraph. Now, I would like to show a paragraph that puts together, again, sandwiches, 3 different sources. So like we're making a smoothie. We mix all of those good things, we put them in the blender, we blend it all together, and we end up with a product. So that's why there's this silly picture there, okay? All right. So for this task, I'm asking you to find task 4 in the handout, and there's going to be 3 huge texts there. You're not going to read them. You're not going to read them. Just like you don't really read most of the articles that you are going to quote unless you skim them first, find that they're absolutely essential for your paper, and then you give them more attention and you read them carefully. Most of the time, when we look for sources to include in the lit review or in our discussion, we skim them first. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. I want to emphasize that you're not going to be doing study reading, you're going to skim. So you will skim 3 excerpts from articles, and we will use this information to produce a well-developed paragraph. Okay, we'll start with summaries, and then we will join each of those summaries with connecting phrases or sentences, and then we will add introductory and concluding sentences. In the end, this is done after. So like with the sandwich model, topic sentence and concluding sentence are produced after the summary is done. Okay, all right. So our task is to skim that part and try to summarize it in 1, 2, possibly 3 sentences, but definitely not more than 3. Okay, all right. Ready, set, go. 3 minutes. Okay, can I ask someone if you got anything out of that part at all of that part of that article? I suggest I show you the Word document that I have, where I have highlighted it in different color. And let me know if you agree that these parts seem essential to this part of the article. For example, here, collectively, these data demonstrate significantly higher rates of COVID-19 diagnosis and deaths in disproportionately Black counties compared with other counties, as well as greater diabetes diagnosis, heart disease deaths, cerebrovascular disease deaths in unadjusted analysis. Then I have region where most Black Americans reside, the southern United States, that also ranks highest in unemployment, uninsurance, limited health system capacity or investment. And then I have differentially impact Black Americans because only 1 in 5 Black Americans have an occupation that permits working from home. So Black Americans work jobs that require both travel and regular interaction with the public, which can increase exposure to the virus, such as service industry, grocery store clerks, cashiers, transportation, such as bus drivers, subway train conductors, and healthcare, nurses, medical aides, home healthcare workers. Being an essential worker during COVID-19 crisis carries risk. Okay? And so the results that more of those people were infected and then at higher mortality is partially explained by the types of jobs that they hold. County level lack of health insurance was associated with proportion of Black Americans in a county with higher rates of COVID-19 diagnosis. After the enactment of Affordable Care Act, insurance fell, but rates climbed back from 2016 to 2018, just in time for the pandemic. Again, service industry jobs also have lower rates of insurance coverage than other professions. In disproportionately Black counties were more urban than other counties, were more likely to have more than 1 person per room, which might reflect multi-generational, multi-family households, marginally lower social distancing scores. Counties with more households having more than 1 person per room experienced greater rates of COVID-19 cases. Okay, so out of this whole section, I would look at these parts specifically. And our article focuses on Black Americans, but they're not the only population of interest. Additional analysis exposing disparities in COVID-19 among Latino, Native American, and other populations are critical, and so on and so forth. Okay, now, if you were to represent this part in one, maybe two sentences, how would you do that? I need a volunteer, somebody brave. Tell me how you can represent this in one sentence.
Social inequality defined as a high level of mortality and
Very good. So social inequality leads to higher level of infection and mortality among which population?
Black communities. Black
About among Black communities in the United States. That's it. That's it. People ask me how many sentences summary has to be. If you're writing a summary and response paper for your college class, then often we say it's something about 20% of the original text. However, in a literature review, you would agree with me, I hope, that sometimes you have a whole book that is represented by 2-3 sentences. Is it possible?
Sure.
Yeah, sometimes we read a whole article and we just quote one fact from it. Sometimes the whole article is summarized in one sentence. You know, sometimes the whole book is represented by just a couple of sentences. Okay, so that's what we're doing. All right. Okay. Well, we have more work to do. And we are going to, I think I'm not in slideshow yet. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing for another discussion section of a whole article. The article is Risk for COVID-19 Infection and Death Among Latinos in the United States, Examining Heterogeneity in Transmission Dynamics. Okay. Even though I did not copy and paste the whole article, I believe they're available to you if you're curious. But for now, there was only a discussion, which still is pretty big. That's why, again, please don't try to read it carefully. Just skim it and see if you can get anything out of those paragraphs so that we can, again, summarize it in 1, 2, no more than 3 sentences. Okay, 3 minutes. Timer has started. We will check back with you in 3 minutes. Have a look at the sentences that I highlighted for this article. So I thought these ones are the most essential. Nationwide analysis of Latino-specific COVID-19 diagnosis and deaths in the United States, including Puerto Rico, found that COVID-19 pandemic disproportionately impacts Latinos. Latino counties only account for 11% of all counties in the Northeast, 4% in the Midwest, and 33% in the West, but the proportion of COVID-19 cases in each region with 63%, over 63% of cases and deaths in the Northeast, 1 and 22 in the Midwest, and 75 and 73 deaths in the West. We can see that there is a higher percentage of affected people. Nationally, COVID-19 diagnosis and deaths increased with the proportion of Latinos residing within a given county. The deaths increased with the proportion of Latino residents in the Midwest. Only likely explanation is that meat and poultry processing facilities in the United States are in the Midwest, and they coincided with COVID outbreaks. And then reports found that large number of Latino migrants were hired to work at those plants, and when there were the infection was found at those meatpacking plants, they were prevented from shutting down, from closing. People were forced to work because they were labeled essential workers. They could not refuse to go to work. They did not qualify for unemployment, so they couldn't afford to stop working. And then it shows that occupational exposure, that's work-related exposure, plays an important role in Latino COVID-19 cases of deaths. Historically, Latinos have experienced patterns of decreased access to healthcare because of lack of insurance, inadequate insurance coverage, fear of deportation. Recent policies that have deterred immigrants from receiving federal safety net and assistance may influence decisions to seek testing and care when needed. So a person is feeling unwell but doesn't go to the doctor because they're afraid that there will be social consequences for them. So as with previous analysis among Black Americans, social determinants of health such as housing, employment, working conditions were better predictors of Latino cases and deaths than underlying health conditions, except heart disease. Okay, so these findings might be ascribed to the fact that most Latinos continued working during this period. They were not working from home, and many jobs held by Latino populations place them at greater risk exposure to COVID-19. Okay, can I have a volunteer who would help me summarize this in 1 or 2 sentences?
National observation, the first national observation of the different level of Latinos disease, mortality, different parts of the countries.
Yes, and what did they find? Very good. What did they find?
They found very different, many differs in the level of the disease and mortality.
Yes, very good. Different levels of infection and death. Okay. And what was it connected to? Those infections and deaths were related to the people's health or something else? Their
historical
employment.
background.
Okay, historical background. Very good. Very good. Okay. Thank you. Really appreciate this. Okay, we are going to do that one more time. We're going to skim the excerpts from Association of Social and Economic Inequality with Coronavirus Disease 2019. Okay, we're going to summarize it in 1 or 2 sentences, no more than 3. And then we will fill out the summary lines that say summary 3. Okay, 3 minutes again, and then we will check back with you in 3 minutes. So here is my suggestion. I believe these parts, I just highlighted them in blue, are most representative. So disproportionate burden of coronavirus disease 2019 on minorized populations in the United States is now well established. The latest data indicate that age-adjusted mortality among Black and Hispanic populations are 3.6 and 3.2 times higher, respectively, than the non-Hispanic white population. Many studies have concluded that COVID-19 has revealed the fault lines of inequality in the United States. Published research has shown disproportionate burden of COVID-19 on minorized populations. The study explains the picture by illustrating how county-level income inequality matters. Okay. This analysis found racial and ethnic composition, while important, does not reveal the full complexity of the story. Income inequality, a measure not typically included in public health county-level surveillance, also needs to be considered as a driver of disproportionate burden borne by minorized communities across the United States. So we're talking about the reasons for the differences that we see. And this article argues that the reason is what? Can you can you help me? What kind of inequality is the driver for higher mortality and disease rates?
Income inequality.
So it's income, thank you. Yes, income inequality. It is not that there is some kind of biological reason behind it. It's just certain populations have income inequality, which results in then health outcomes. Very good. Can we put this together into the handout that you have that asks you to, how do I get back to this presentation from current slide? Yeah. So summarize the main point in 1-2 sentences, no more than 3, and fill out summary 3 lines in your handout. Okay. Let's just read what we're going to do now. So we have summarized 3 different sources. We identified the connection between them. We see that all 3 of them work, talk about similar phenomena, right? Find similar results. And then after that, we will add a topic sentence introducing all of our summaries, and then we will have a concluding sentence, okay? So here's kind of my example, right? That's my first summary. As established by Millet et al., that's my attributive tag. Black Americans suffered more losses from COVID-19 because of higher poverty rates, overcrowded living conditions, service industry employment with lack of health insurance and lack of health care. And then I finish it with 2020 pages 40 to 43. So I'm marking the beginning and the end of this summary, okay? All right, then here's our similarly, that's our connector to the next summary. Similarly, Latino population of the US was hurt by the epidemic largely because of their occupation, especially meat packing plants, lack of medical care, densely populated households, and other social determinants of overall welfare. Page 50, 52. Can someone catch my mistake? I have a problem here. Who can tell me what's missing? I have a mistake in the second summary. What is it?
The year.
Oh, the year. Oh, okay. What else? Something is missing. What something is missing? Besides the year, what else is missing?
I
The
think
name.
maybe largely, because
The name of the, yeah, the name of the people. Yes, I should have put, yeah, the name of the authors of the article and the year. Very good. Okay, good. And then the last one, I'm going to say that the third article, well, in my opinion, was slightly different from the first 2, because the first 2 took demographic information and connected it to the rates of COVID infection and death. But the third one argues that it's really not the ethnicity. So it's not biological. It's actually is social, it's poverty, it's income inequality. That's the real reason for those higher rates among those studied populations. That's why I put however. However, it's important to keep in mind, as Lau and DiMaio emphasize, that the real root of the problem is income inequality that affects US minorities more than other groups. Here I have the year and pages, okay? All right, what is missing here is your, let's say you're writing this article, your own interpretation, your own understanding, your own discussion of this information. So as at the very least, we need a topic sentence and a concluding sentence. Can I have some suggestions for how to start this paragraph? See, my green text is hanging in the air because something is missing. A topic sentence is missing. Can you please suggest a topic sentence for me?
maybe minorities during the pandemic.
Very good. Minorities during the pandemic, what? What happened to minorities during the pandemic?
They experienced disproportionate impact
Perfect.
of
Thank you.
COVID-19.
Excellent. All right. That's an excellent topic sentence there. And please keep in mind that it doesn't have to be just one. After your topic sentence, you can add some more discussion, right? But topic sentence is the bare minimum. Now, how would we finish this paragraph so that we start with our own text and we finish with our own text? What kind of concluding sentence can we add?
Maybe it's mentioned that social inequality became the more important factor during the pandemic.
Perfect. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is great. Okay, so here's what I suggest. So some sectors of the US population, like you said, minorities, yeah, suffered from the coronavirus pandemic more than others. Then we have summary 1, connector, summary 2, connector, summary 3, and then we finish all together. These sources provide a nuanced and complex picture of the difficult situation. So my topic sentence, my concluding sentence is not as good as what you suggested, because you suggested discussing income inequality as the real problem of all of the health issues that people suffer. So we could definitely expand this and discuss it some more. But the paragraph has to have at least your introductory sentence or several of them, and your concluding sentence or several of them. Okay, how does this one look? Does this paragraph look good to you?
It's very clear for understanding.
Okay, all right, let's
For
get rid of all of the
readers.
color. No, yeah, okay. Now, we have about half an hour left. So traditionally, these seminars finish with question and answer sessions. So the last 30 or 40 minutes are reserved for questions and answers. And we can do that. And I would also encourage you to ask me maybe general questions about what we have been doing, what we have been discussing here, but also I would like to talk about specific paragraphs or specific papers that you're working on. Now it's your time